The new Knightmares can be a bit of a nightmare to learn or play if you're not prepared. You're watching Team APS, and in today's video, I'm going to give you guys 10 things to know about Knightmares, whether you're new to playing the deck or dealing with it. Let's hop in. Number 1, this archetype consists almost entirely of link monsters. In fact, there's only one archetype monster, Knightmare Corruptor Iblee, that isn't a link monster. And this means that you can put them in a lot of different extra decks, and you can probably try to use them, but you'll want to make sure that you have a sufficient amount of monsters to actually make the cards. Number 2, the summoning requirements for all the different Knightmare monsters are 2 or more monsters that have different names. This means that a combo deck with a wide type and variety of monsters will be able to make this pretty easily. On the other hand though, it means that cards like Scapegoat actually aren't so easy to spam Knightmares out with like they are with other Link monsters. Number 3, the Knightmare monsters have on-summon effects that have you discard a card to, say, send a card back to the deck. And if the monster was co-linked at the time, you'll also get to draw a card to recoup you for your troubles. However, if you don't have anything to discard, this can be a bit of a problem. So you'll want to make sure that your deck has some sort of recurring discard fodder. For example, Gokis tend to use Divine Sword Phoenix Blade, which is recyclable from the graveyard, to fuel their discards for the Knightmare monster's effects. Number 4, most people think that Knightmares are an extra link spam strategy, and they are, but it should be noted that some of the Knightmare monsters like Cerberus, Phoenix, and Unicorn can actually be used to simply out-trouble some problematic cards in the field. This is actually really important because up until now there hadn't been a lot of link monsters that could really easily out a problem on the board for you, so they could be considered staples in any extra deck. Number 5, Knightmare Goblin can actually replace Gem Knight Seraph Knight in a lot of different strategies, granting you the normal summon. This means that you won't have to run Brilliant Fusion and Gem Knight Garnet clogging up your main deck, but you will need to do a discard, and that can take a bit of advantage, and that's after making the Goblin himself. It does have pretty useful link arrows though, so this could be potentially mitigated by that. Number 6, be thoughtful of the order and placement of your Knightmare monsters as you're summoning them. They have a variety of link arrows, and it means that you can pretty easily make an extra link, which is extremely powerful. However, if you make them in the wrong order, you might actually lock yourself out of that entirely, so you have to be very, very careful about that. On the flip side, a well-timed Ghost Ogre or Ghost Reaper can actually interrupt a Knightmare sequence very effectively, and so that's something to keep in mind. Knightmare Corruptor Iblee is an extremely useful card in the Knightmare strategy and a very dangerous card if you're facing against it. When she's normal summoned, she special summons back any link monster for them, which is immediately useful. And then when they link summon with her, she gets special summoned to the opponent's side of the field. At that point, she becomes a bit of a leech because while she's on your field, you can't special summon any monsters unless it's a link summon. So that means you need to get rid of her as priority number 1. Normally this would be pretty easy. You can normal summon one of your monsters and then link it with Knightmare Corruptor Iblee, and your problem is solved. However, if the opposing Knightmare player has made an extra link board, they might not actually be giving you any space to make a link summon because they've occupied both extra monster zones and there aren't any pointing to you. At this point, it means you need to find another way to get rid of Iblee, and that can be a little bit tough. You could use a mass removal card like Darkhole, or you could even swing her into one of the opponent's monsters. But you have to be very careful because this card can really shut your plays out if you're not prepared to deal with it. Like I mentioned at the start, Knightmares require a deck that's fast and can generate a lot of monsters very quickly to be effective. The 3 most notable Knightmare-centric decks are World Chalice, Spirals, and Gokis, each for different reasons. Which you play is up to you, but it doesn't mean that you can't use Knightmares in other strategies. When enough co-linked Knightmare monsters make their way into the field, it can become extremely difficult to play. They'll often be negating things, being indestructible. It's just a really unfun time. And it's so tough that sometimes even Darkhole or Raigeki aren't actually enough to stop them. And if Knightmare Corruptor Iblee is on your field, you can't even use a Kaiju to get rid of them because a Kaiju is a special summon and Iblee only lets you link summon. So the 2 most reliable options to get out of situations like this are evenly matched, which will clear your opponent's nearly entire board, or a more budget option is actually the Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere mode, which is a normal summon, but it still lets you tribute 3 of your opponent's monsters, effectively clearing out any extra link and the most troublesome floodgate effects from them. And finally, Knightmares only get their extra draw effect and their passive protection effect if they are co-linked. This is important because it means that if you're playing against them, you want to make sure that you disrupt their plays at just the point where you can stop them from co-linking additional Knightmare monsters. You want to watch your opponent closely and figure out exactly what they're trying to do and try to anticipate it that way. By the same token, sometimes getting rid of just one link monster can actually stop the co-linked effects of one or two other Knightmare monsters in the process. So if you ever see an opportunity like that, be sure to capitalize on it. So those are 10 things to know for beginners getting into Knightmares. If you want to know a bit more about the Archetype, you can check out other videos like Tombox from MST.tv, he made a rulings video about the Archetype, or Simo, who's got a bit of a rough guide to playing them as well. I'll link those in the description, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up to let me know, and subscribe, plus hit the notification bell so you know about all the other videos. I'm planning to make other 10 things to know about videos like this in the future, so you want to be notified of all of them. Without further ado, I will see you guys in the next one. Video where you can learn a little bit more about how these effects work, and guys by viewers